what does semi-retirement look like? And do you plan to like come out of it at some point, or what are your thoughts there?
Yeah, that's a great question, Jeff. As we mentioned, like when we were first kicking this off, I was a member of the United States military for 15 years. I served all over the world, places here in the US, all over the country, and then all over the world, and in multiple combat theaters. During my tenure in the Army,
When you first came out of the military, was it hard to adjust? Like I know I've never served and I've like shot guns at the range, but otherwise have never been in any like situations like that. So coming back, is it like how the heck am I supposed to even integrate and like become a normal member of society again? Or what was that like for you?
that's a really interesting question and one that isn't asked as often as it should be. Yes, it was extremely difficult for a multitude of reasons. One,
Most people claim who've never been in active combat will use the word PTSD like casually, like, oh, I got PTSD from this thing. So can you like talk about what PTSD actually is and like what it feels like?
that's another really cool question. Because PTSD to me, is a feeling. It's not, it is a brain condition, but to me, it's interpreted as feelings. So my definition of post-traumatic stress disorder is
I'm a big believer that we create our own reality, that this podcast is actually called The Reality Creators. So I'm a big believer that we create our reality with our thoughts, words, and actions, and then also that we create our own meaning. And
Mhm.
I'll give you an example. Like, what do you know and what have you learned through life that you wish like more people knew and embodied?
Learning to love yourself first through your faults, missteps, mistakes, learning to forgive and love yourself for being imperfect before you try to go and be loved by other people.
Your post the other day about you're like, yeah, that's what prompted me to reach out was like you said, I'm not running a business. Please do not be in my DMs trying to sell me lead generation or whatever that.
Yeah.
How many of those do you get a day right now?
Probably 10 to 15 on average. And at first I was like, oh, that's cute. Respectfully, like I respect the hustle, getting out there and just cold DMing everybody. But since I had serial sales in my bio and coach and remote business guy, everybody's like, oh, maybe he's gonna start an offer, maybe he needs lead gen, or maybe he needs help with marketing or funnels. And I'm like, I got tired of telling people no. So I just started deleting the messages and I had to put a plea for help up and pin it on my page like, guys, I'm not looking to start an offer. I'm not even working on one right now. I'm just kind of vibing and traveling. So can you give it a rest?
Can you not? The only problem is they won't even see that message. They're outbound like automations. They don't care. You know, it's
I know.
spray and pray. So it is what it is. But have you ever done any outreach? Have you ever run cold outreach like that?
No, I've never been in a position to need to do that.
That's great. You got always referrals and
Hmm.
people coming to you. That's
Yeah.
incredible. Okay. So you're semi-retired right now.
Yeah.
I kind of am. Like I think I'm in the position where I'll never need to work again, like if I don't want to. And now I'm trying
Hmm.
to decide like what exactly I want to build and what gives me meaning. But I'm curious to hear from you, like, what does semi-retirement look like? And do you plan to like come out of it at some point? Or what are your thoughts there?
Yeah, that's a great question, Jeff. So as we mentioned, like when we were first kicking this off, I was a member of the United States military for 15 years. I served all over the world, places here in the US, all over the country, and then all over the world, and in multiple combat theaters. So during my tenure in the Army, I got to do some really cool things, but unfortunately, the byproduct of doing those cool things was some severe bodily harm. So what happened was, long story short, I'm 100% disabled, permanent and total United States Army veteran through the VA. What that means is I'm not a potato. I'm not a vegetable. I can do things. I can function. I can drive. I can have interpersonal relationships, but there are ailments that were caused by certain things that happened that will never get better or go away. So for that, I'm compensated um, by the Veterans Administration on a monthly basis. I also have a pension from the Army. I got medically retired, so when you combine those two things, it's like having $1.5 million or $2 million sitting in a brokerage account that you're drawing interest on every month. So, five, six, $7,000 every month tax free. It comes no matter what. So that's why I call myself semi-retired, because I've earned those dividends that I'm being paid now by sacrificing my time and my body. And what I did over the last year is I was really diligent about every extra dollar I made went to paying things off. I bought a new car 2 years ago, already paid off. Student loans, everything's gone. I don't owe anybody any money now. And so if I'm able to live semi-frugally, I don't ever have to work again either. So to answer the second part of your question, will I come back? Probably, but it's kind of, I'm in the same boat as you. I would assume it's going to have to be interesting. It's going to have to be something that makes me want to do it, because I'm not a money hungry person. I don't want to work just for the sake of working. I went to Mexico on 2 days' notice right before Christmas, just because I'm in the let's be spontaneous and adventurous part of my life, not let's work 12 or 14 hours a day, because everything else is figured out.
I love it. Yeah. Isn't it a freeing position to be in? Like you did all the
It
work
is,
ahead of time.
yeah, it's amazing to be able to say no to anything.
Yeah.
Just, I don't like that. No, I don't need to do anything. I could effectively just be fully retired right now. I, but I don't know if that's exactly what I want. So I'm still going to be a part of the space. I'm still going to connect with a lot of the people that I know. And when things come up, and I get sent offers and jobs and pitches all the time for things, if something catches my eye, seems interesting, or I really believe in the mission, I'll go back to work. But I'm not going to do it for just anything.
100%. Yeah, that's the ability to say no is so freeing. I
Mhm.
did not get very much sleep last night and I felt so tired. And I was like, oh my God, this is what I used to live like when
Yeah.
I used to do air traffic control. That was my career. And
Mhm.
it's, I mean, one, working for the government, but two, everybody hated it and was unhappy and their sleep
Mhm.
schedule or was all messed up. So it's just so liberating and freeing to be like, yeah, I can just do whatever the heck I want. Like,
Mhm.
have fun conversations with people, meet people,
Yeah.
and all that.
My
So
brother was an air traffic controller as well in the Air Force, and he said the same thing. He did it for 4 years, and his, career progression was to be, go to the Air Force, get trained up on it, go to college, get a degree, and then go work for the FAA. As soon as his contract with the Air Force was up, he's like, I'm never doing this again. I can't. Too much.
yeah, it's funny because in the process of like when we were there, it was all and I was like good. Like so it didn't it was definitely my ego. And that was like everybody's thing was like whenever we were asked, like, is it stressful? It'd be like, yeah, it's stressful if you suck. Um, but if you're good, then no, it's not. But then after I left, it was one of those things where I didn't realize how stressful it was. It was more for me like the working environment and just like everybody there was so unhappy. And I was like looking at them and like, I'm like counting down. I could be eligible to retire at 49, but I'm in my 20s. Like, that's not the way to live, to be counting down the years of when you can retire. So
Yeah.
I took the leap, actually quit once, traveled the world, ran out of money, and then went back because I
There
was
you
like,
go.
what are my skills? I don't know what I can do. Uh, where I can make that kind of money for that kind of effort. And like
Mhm.
there's a whole bunch of benefits like playing ping pong in the break room or playing basketball outside or like working 4 hours out of the 8 hour shift and still getting paid. But
Mhm.
yeah, feel so free not being
Good.
so um but I agree with what you're saying about I don't know how old you are. I'm 35,
I'm
but
35 as well.
cool. Yeah, I think humans were meant to work. Like I don't think I would be fulfilled to just like, oh, I have enough money to never work again and just not work. I mean, I have a lot of hobbies and I enjoy a lot of things, but I still think that
Mhm.
like we were put on this earth to create.
Yeah. I think you
So,
have to have a purpose, a task and a purpose, whether that's doing something for free, like volunteering or being generous to others, giving your time, or whether it's trading your time for money or creating something. whatever it is, we have to have a task and a purpose, or we'll start to lose our way and lose motivation. People that aren't goal focused or oriented, are just going to aimlessly wander around and, probably struggle with some sort of mental health issue after some point. If they're not accomplishing or changing anything, at least in my case, I tend to get a little crazy.
I agree. What is it right now that's like really exciting to you or has your attention or like what do you do with your free time?
Oh, goodness. I read a lot, Jeff. So I collect rare classic fiction. Probably got 5 or 6 thousand books here in the house. So never a shortage of literature to keep me busy. Oh, excuse me. I've gotten into gardening and house plants and stuff. I'm fully embracing my middle-agedness. I like your corn plant behind you. I have one right over there. Um, and then traveling. I took 8 solo trips last year, and I'm planning to do at least as many, if not more, this year. So,
Nice. Do you speak Spanish?
um, not fluently. I'm semi-conversational. I can go to Mexico and I can make my way around, but that's another way that I'm filling my time is trying to become more conversational.
Yeah. Yeah, that's incredible. Man, we got a lot that we connect on. So for your solo travel, I've done a decent amount of solo travel.
Mhm.
What kind of like lessons or like things have you learned about yourself from solo traveling?
That I'm not as uncomfortable around strangers as I thought I was. Typically, it's been in my head. I've been in VA therapy for post-traumatic stress disorder for a long time. And one of the things that she always urges me to do is, get out of your house because I live out here on in the middle of nowhere. I can't see any houses from here. I can't hear anybody. She's like, you got to get out, man. Get out there. Not everybody's bad. Not bad stuff isn't going to happen when you go outside. You're not in Iraq or Afghanistan anymore. And like, it's just getting out, exposing myself to unforeseen circumstances and strangers and strange places and cementing in my head like you can navigate through this world and not have to worry about whether or not something bad is going to happen. So
Is that
that's what I've discovered about myself is I can insert myself into someone else's country, culture, city, restaurant, beach, anything, and I can find a way to be comfortable and fit in and make friends and enjoy myself no matter where I'm at. So
okay? I want to go a little bit deeper on this. When you first came out of the military, was it hard to adjust? Like I know I've never served and I've like shotguns at the range, but otherwise have never been in any like situations like that. So coming back, was is it like how the heck am I supposed to even integrate and like become a normal member of society again? Or what was that like for you?
that's a really interesting question and one that isn't asked as often as it should be. Yes, it was extremely difficult for a multitude of reasons. One, when you go from gunfights and convoys and roadside bombs and all of these crazy things that we were doing over there that the average person just can't even fathom, um, come back and you get stuck in line for 30 minutes at a Costco and people are whining and complaining about things like that. You kind of get jaded, but in a bad way. Where everybody sounds like a sissy. Everybody whines and complains. So you get kind of spiteful, like when you first get back, at least in my case, where I'm like, shut the F up, everyone. You don't have anything to complain about. But then also mentally, just kind of unplugging from that state of mind, like being a war fighter, being somebody who is just on. It's like sleep, eat, work out, run missions, sleep, eat, work out, run missions, and then come back and just have to pay bills and worry about the water bill, or is there gas in the car, or is there food in the fridge, because when you're over there doing a job like that, there's a whole mess of people behind you that are taking care of all the logistics, your clothes, your food. There's somebody working on the vehicles and fueling them up, everything. They just point and say, you go over there and do this, and you're like, okay. Then you come back and do it again. So I really struggled when I first came back, especially after my first rotation, which I was only 19 when I went, and I wasn't even I couldn't even buy a beer when I got home at first. Um, so it was tough. One, because I was young and immature, and two, I had gone through some pretty traumatic stuff, and then just coming back and trying to pretend like everything was fine and dandy when it wasn't was tough.
Yeah. What do you feel like the VA therapy and stuff? Like, I'm not gonna ask if it's been helpful, but do you feel like it's like they're using the right tools?
Yes, it is helpful, and I think anybody that's served in the military that has, or even maybe doesn't have combat-related post-traumatic stress disorder, just if you have anything going on and you're a veteran, use the services because it's been incredible. I meet with her twice a month, and she's always trying new things. We're doing some cognitive therapy later this month. I can't remember what it's called, but it has something to do with lights in your eyes and moving and shifting your eyeballs. But she just went and got certified as a trainer in this, and she's like, "We should try it." I'm like, "Yeah, I love it." Um,
Incredible. Have you ever done any hypnosis or NLP therapy?
mm-mm.
It's super cool. If you ever want to do that, I'd be more than happy to do it with you. So,
Oh, cool.
can you, most people claim who've never been in active combat will use the word PTSD like casually, like, oh, I got PTSD from this thing. So can you like talk about what PTSD actually is and like what it feels like?
Hmm. That's another really cool question. Because PTSD is to me, is a feeling. It's not, it is a brain condition, but to me, it's interpreted as feelings. So my definition of post-traumatic stress disorder is my body's automatic response to a trigger. Something that when I was in combat, my body learned was bad or potentially bad. If I'm in a car and it's really hot in the car, I can feel my heart rate will raise. I'll get kind of tingly or itchy. My tinnitus will get louder, and it'll just kind of feel like I'm getting closed in. And I'll get real anxious because it reminds me of being all kitted up in a Humvee or an MRAP rolling through the desert. Um, if I get cornered by something or if I hear a gunshot or stuff, like there's little things that will happen, and my body automatically reacts. It's like automatic climate control, when it's like, oh no, it's getting too cold in here. Let's crank the heat up real fast. And then my body starts to get real hot and I'm tingly and I get a little shaky, a little anxious and just kind of hyper focused and vigilant. Um, I don't really struggle with things like nightmares anymore. I'll have the occasional, dream or daydream about things, but for the most part, I'm past a lot of that, like what Hollywood would say is PTSD, waking up in the middle of the night and clearing the house with a gun. I never got to that point, but there are certain situations where my body will react in a negative way to kind of tell me like, hey, you're in danger when I'm actually not. It's like a warning, like a check engine light. Like, hey, pay attention, something bad might happen. And it's like, no, bro, we're in Costco. Chill.
Yeah, that's especially if you were overseas at such a young age. Imagine it's burned into your subconscious of like, I don't know what exactly they teach in the army, but I assume it's something like everything is trying to kill you type of thing and always be in that state of, and correct me if I'm wrong here, always be in that state of like what could go wrong and what's out there trying to harm me. Is that accurate?
It's fairly accurate. Just because one is in the Army or the Marines or the Navy or anything doesn't mean everyone is going to be subjected to certain kinds of missions or exposure to things. But yes, in certain capacities, it's turn the switch on, go do a job, come back, turn it off, and it's just a cycle that repeats itself.
Yeah. To me, it
A
sounds a
lot of
lot like,
analyzation. It's risk assessments and battle damage assessments and all the assessments. You're always assessing something as a warfighter, and it's hard to stop doing that when you come home. You know?
I believe it. Yeah, that's what I was going to ask. It sounds like what you're talking about being in a hot car and that bringing you back to being in a Humvee or in a on a mission or whatever. It sounds like what I would call an NLP anchor, which is like I don't know if you've heard of an anchor before, but it's like if you hear a song that you listen to like when you were with a girlfriend Like
Mhm.
it could be when you're a teenager or whatever, you
Yeah.
hear that song and you remember her and you remember that exact moment, like it brings you back in. It sounds like
Yeah,
that feeling of the heat is like, oh crap, this is the feeling that I felt when I was in Iraq when I didn't feel safe.
exactly. And my brain doesn't register that. I'm just like, why am I getting so hot right now? And I'll start to notice, like, as the snowball gets bigger rolling down the hill, I'll be like, oh, my tinnitus is louder. My hands feel tingly. My body temperature is up. My face is getting red. Uh-oh, why am I doing now? I have to start being introspective and be like, why am I feeling this way in this moment? And then that's how I've been able to identify the things that will trigger those kinds of autonomous body responses. Because I don't think if I'm in somebody's hot car, I'm not sitting there thinking like, oh, I'm in danger. Like, oh no, something bad might happen. It's just like, damn it, turn the heat down. But my body is communicating to me like that I am in danger, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it has like memory of like it takes you back to those, like you said, with PTSD feelings, like the bottom
Mhm.
feeling that you feel. And it's like, yeah, I can totally imagine.
It's been an interesting, it's like an evil twin or something. It's like you have to get to know it and understand it. Um, because the better you understand it, the better you can explain it to other people so that when you do have, I don't want to call it an episode, I've never like dug a trench in my front yard and had a standoff with the cops or anything like you see about crazy veterans in movies. I don't know why I felt like pointing at my television when I said that, but that's where movies play.
Yeah.
Um, it's never like that, but a lot of people won't understand when you're going through something like that. So it's been my mission, no pun intended, to get to know myself in that state as well as I can through therapy, so that the people that are around me and the people that I meet, I can give them a bit of a explanation or a disclaimer to where hopefully they can see me a little bit more accurately.
Yeah. Do you have either practices or like things that you do like when you feel this coming up? Do you have like resources that you're like, this is my go-to, like I'm gonna start breathing deeply or I'm gonna start doing something like that to
Yeah, the first I need to ground myself in the moment. Like I need to trick my brain into reassessing where I'm at. So I'll touch things, rub my hand on the fabric of my car seat, uh, anything, play with my beard, just something to ground myself in the moment. And then I search for colors. Just like right this second, 5 colors: blue, gray, brown, black, green, red. Okay, so I'm here with all of these colors, feeling this thing like I'm sitting on a picnic table in my dining room in my house, surrounded by these things. And then it goes to breathing. What I use for that is an app called the Mindfulness app. Uh, and that just kind of helps reground me. Um, and then I take notes about it and I share them with my therapist and say, hey, she always checks in like, hey, how's it been in the last couple of weeks? Like, well, I had, this incident and this incident where I didn't feel too well or I got a little anxious. And then I'll have notes like, what did I feel? Why do I think I felt it? What did I do to alleviate it? And so I don't do much of that anymore. But when I was first learning about myself and this condition, this thing that I have to deal with, taking notes was the best help.
incredible. Yeah, I mean, I don't want to compare anything that I've been through to what
Mhm.
you've been through, but I've noticed for me that just brain dumping, like just writing every morning or whatever, even if it's just like, man, yesterday I did something that I'm not proud of or I wish I wouldn't have done, and
Mhm.
just like letting it out, it feels very therapeutic. Do you
Yeah.
have any like do you have a meditation practice or do you have any like mindful daily like non-negotiable rituals or practices that you do?
Pardon me. I do. Not always the best at sticking to them, but there's 3 things that I want to do every day. I want to wake up quietly. So the first, at least half an hour of my day, I don't want to be on my phone, be on the laptop. I don't want to have anything on the television. I just want to sit and be quiet. And whether that's I incorporate the second thing that I like to do, which is journaling, into that quiet time or later in the day. And then I walk. So I have a treadmill here at the house, and I try to put in some time on that every day. Just put my AirPods in or turn on my favorite movie or podcast or something and just get some steps in, get my body moving. Those are the three things that really help me regulate.
Incredible. Yeah, I have been intentionally practicing, and sometimes I fail miserably, just not touching the phone for the first hour of the day, and that being
Mhm.
my sacred time where I let, in meditation, whatever comes up, and then whether it's journaling or even if it's just me going out for a walk, and like maybe I'll use the voice notes app on my phone to like
Mhm.
record what I'm thinking or whatever the case is. But yeah, I mean, I think I would say like 99% of Americans, probably people in the world, first thing they do is check their phone for notifications and then get into that fight or flight mode right away. And it's just, it doesn't serve me at all.
Oh, I'm guilty of that as well. You just get up and then you've seen 500 pictures before you've even rolled out of bed. And it's like that scrolling and the flashing of new things in your eyes and your brain, it just puts me in a different mood if I immediately jump on my phone. And nowadays, unfortunately, most of the stuff that's being put out there is negative
Oh,
in a
100.
lot of cases. And, I just don't like starting my day like that.
Yeah. I, there's a guy, Tej Dosa. I don't know if you know him from Twitter. He's a really good
Mm-mm.
copywriter. I'm taking there's a course right now that he's got called Clean Your Inner World, where it's 45
Mhm.
days where you get rid of all vices, all things like that. And then there's 5 daily practices. One's morning meditation. One, like you said, is feeling your arms and your legs. So like inhabiting the body, using your word as a magic wand, like always speaking the truth, never saying, if you say something, you do it no matter what. Like in a sales situation, if I
Yeah.
say, oh, I'll give you a call back, it's like, I'm not going to say that unless I'm 100% going to do it. And I
Right, right.
that word. And then there's three other practices that, like, one is bioenergetics, which it looks and seems ridiculous. It's
Mhm.
like these, like, one of them, we're like walking around on our heels with our toes up in the air, and you can feel the tension in the body. And I think what it is trying to tell your subconscious that when you feel this pain and when you feel this resistance, it's okay, you're safe, and really just feel the feelings and allow the feelings to come up. And
Yeah.
so it's been that guy. I highly recommend checking out his stuff. He is like a wizard. He got me started in online business. Like, he was the first course that I bought. Incredible guy, incredibly
Hmm.
smart. The practices I did it first like 2 years ago, and it was just like I hit all my goals. He also has, I don't know if you have like a vision board or a mindset folder, but I learned that from him. And like everything that I put in that folder has come true. So it's just like so cool. Um,
Amazing.
and unfortunately, to your point about everything's negative on social media, the more that we consume stuff like that, then the more that we think that the world is a negative place, and that
Mhm.
we start looking for those things as opposed to the positives that are really around.
Right.
So
That's what the antithesis of that is traveling and getting out into the world and seeing it firsthand. There are good people everywhere you go. Everywhere you go, you can have fun and make friends and enjoy yourself.
yeah, unfortunately, the
Not
news tries to show
not
you.
everywhere, but most places.
Yeah, unfortunately, the news tries to show you all the bad, the scary, and the stuff like that.
Mhm.
Program you that way.
Yeah.
Um, how you mentioned gardening? I'm really curious about this because I've started to get way more into like plants, and like I think even just like having plants around is like healing in some way. So I'm curious, like
Mhm.
when you do gardening, what does that connect you with, or what does that tap you into?
I don't know if I have a real concise answer for that. What I do know is that I love having them around. I think I've got about 35 or 40 in the house now. And it gives me something, it's tedious work because every plant needs something a little bit different. So it gives me busy work to like make a spreadsheet of, okay, this plant needs watered at this frequency and it needs fed or fertilized at this frequency. And that's so much different than this other one. So it's a daily task where the task is different each day. And I really enjoy that. Plus having them around, it just gives me something to take care of. I don't have children. I don't have any pets. I don't have a girlfriend or a wife. I'm just flying solo, whether it's here at my house or on an airplane to another country. Um, taking care of my plants, and I really enjoy it.
When you travel, what do you do with the plants?
I water them, and I'm usually not gone long enough for anything bad to happen. Usually don't stay gone for any longer than like 8 or 10 days.
Okay. So you just set it up so that way when you come back, they'll need you when you come back, but they
Yeah,
can survive for the time being. That's cool.
for sure.
Yeah. I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's like the actual like touching the soil or touching the plants and like or if it's caring for something else. Like I've heard people who are like say in the hospital, they recover faster if there's a plant in the room. Have you heard that?
Yeah. I believe I've heard that before, but I couldn't tell you where or in what context.
Yeah. And I mean I don't know if it's true, but I believe it. And so I guess if
Yeah.
I believe it, then it is true.
Like I would rather have a plant than not have one. And to your point, it is a rewarding thing to know that you're taking care of something that just simply wouldn't exist if you didn't exist. Like, I don't know, it's nice to even buy a plant to feel needed.
Yeah.
So it gives me a tedious task every day to take care of them, and I get to watch them grow. And it's not like I'm talking about children, but I don't want those. Um, yeah, I really enjoy it.
Do you
I
think
tried to do a vegetable garden, but it didn't work out very well.
how come?
I started late and then it got cold too early. So I'm not doing that this year.
Have you ever heard of microgreens?
Yes, actually, I bought a little hydroponic station, and I tried to grow them, but I wasn't very good at it. I want to do that though, because I eat greens every day.
You should try it again because it there's a little bit of a learning curve for sure, but I started
Mhm.
growing like broccoli microgreens and apparently they have like I think sulforaphane is the chemical that's in it. That's like one of the healthiest antioxidant, anti-cancer, all these things. And
Nice.
they're the most abundant in the microgreens. And so, yeah,
Mhm.
I was for a while, I was growing them. I was thinking about starting a business around them, and they taste great. They're super healthy. And
Yeah.
once you learn how to do it, it's again a thing that like you get to grow your own food, which is incredible. It's like not something
Yeah.
that people, I mean, some people have a garden, but it's anymore. It's now just we go to the store and we get everything that we need there type of thing.
Hmm. Yeah. Awesome. I'll look into it.
Cool. So do you think that um like having a plant or taking care of plants or something like that, do you feel like that like because something needs you, do you feel like that gives you purpose in some way?
In a very small way, yes. But I think that's what life is about, is finding a collection of things that give you purpose and meaning. It's very rare for a person to have one singular purpose. Like, this is the only reason that I am breathing right now. It's usually a collection of things, friends and family and plants and, careers or obligations or church, faith, meditation, whatever it is. You just kind of add them all up, and that's you. That's the reason you're here. So plants are a small portion of that.
Yeah. What else do you feel like you mentioned earlier? Feel like even if you're not working, you need to have a task and a purpose. Like
Mhm.
what have you found within yourself that like task or purpose feels like for you?
Yeah, right now it's becoming more conversational and fluent in Spanish. I'd like to read more and educate myself more. I do have some educational benefits that are unused from my service, so I think I might get another degree, go back to school for what I do not know right now, but you can't. It'd be dumb to say no to a free 4 year degree
Yeah.
or a master's degree. They'll pay for as much as you want at my disability rating. Um, so I'd like to just become more educated.
Cool. Yeah, I'm naturally a very curious person. I'm in a season of rest as well. Like I'm taking 3 courses now. Um, just started a third one last night, so I'm taking 3 courses right now. I'm still working. I still have a couple coaching clients, but otherwise, it's like my season that I'm in right now is just I get to learn, and then so like I have
Mhm.
not 5,000 books. I probably have like 40 books I'm in Colombia, and that I like the last time I came down here, I had a suitcase full of books because I like wanted the physical books. And yeah, I'm incredibly curious. What kinds of things are you like, do you find like so interesting that you like can't stop learning about or reading about?
I love people's stories. So just learning about what someone else has been through. And I'm more inclined to, military history and stories. I love hearing about people and their experiences and what they've gone through there. And then classic fiction. I'm a total nerd for classic American literature. So,
Incredible. Yeah, I pretty much all the books I read, I would say all the books I read are nonfiction. Should probably add a fiction book in there for
mhm.
for just joy. But I feel like the book list that I have is ever expanding, and the time that I devote to reading, I'm way better at buying books than I am reading them.
Yeah. Oh, me too. I find that having one nonfiction book and one fiction book going at the same time it's a nice balance. Read the nonfiction book in the morning, educate yourself, get your brain exercise, learn something new. And then at night, when you're winding down to go to bed, turn the lights down a little bit, put your phone away, and read a story just to kind of decompress for the day. And it's kind of the way that I do it. I always have a nonfiction and a fiction going at the same time.
I'm gonna make a note to read some more fiction then, because yeah, I hmm, constantly searching for knowledge or trying to learn and trying to make myself better. But I think that probably just keeps my brain completely active and probably doesn't let me relax or rest as much as I could.
Yeah, I was going to ask you a question in this, as you stated, this season of rest that you're in. Have you found yourself sometimes trying to rest but not being able to because you're having this feeling that you're not doing anything or not accomplishing anything, and it's like you're foreshadowing, like you're almost creating a problem when there isn't one, or
Absolutely.
a scenario where it turns into a problem, and you're like, is that something that you've had to deal with?
Yeah, I am by nature, whatever. I am very problem solving oriented. So I'm like
Yeah.
always trying to solve problems. Like when my wife tells me about a problem, she really just wants me to listen. And I've learned that now, but I'm like, here, let's solve the problem. And then it's like, oh, that's not what she actually wants. She wants me to listen to the problem and be there for her. So
Yeah.
that's one example. The other one for me is I am always moving. I'm always going out for walks in nature or wherever. And
Yeah.
so, yeah, I definitely resonate with that. One of the coaches that I hired, he talked about doing versus being. And so a lot of my habits were around doing. I was like having these deep work blocks, reading, doing this breathing exercise, doing all these things. And he's like, how often do you just take time to be? And I'm like,
Mhm.
well, I guess in meditation. But yeah, it's like it seems like, and it's really interesting, especially because you're in a similar position. It seems like most people spend their entire lives trying to solve the money problem and they either don't solve it or they spend their whole life just they don't even get to the next level of like knowing themselves and like having a purpose beyond whatever the thing is that they do to make money to provide for themselves or their family or whatever.
Mhm. Yeah.
So yeah, I definitely resonate with the overactive. I don't know if my brain gets too like I'm getting better at releasing the like just constant thoughts. This morning I woke up and I was super tired, so I had a whole bunch of negative thoughts. I mean, I still have, and I imagine you do as well. I still have negative thoughts about like people that I used to work air traffic control with. Like this morning, I was like pissed off at this supervisor. I can't believe he did that. Oh man, I want to get back at him, or oh man. So do you have that kind of stuff like running often, those programs running in your head about like past events, either you wish you would have done something differently or like you wish you could change the past per se?
Yes, absolutely. And coincidentally, it happens in the morning for me as well. Um, there's a lot of things that I've cut out from my life that were contributing to that kind of anxiety. So it's gotten better, but yes, it's like your brain is your wife that's been waiting for you to get home all day, and you've just been asleep and it hasn't been doing anything, and it has all these things it wants to tell you, and you wake up and it just floods, and you're like, ah. So yeah, that happens too. You just have to regulate it. Like, wait a minute, why am I thinking about that? And is it doing me anything? Is it doing any good for me to be thinking about that? And just be like, get out of here.
So I had the last guy that I was selling for, one of the most impressive onboarding processes, really, really smart guy. One of the things in the onboarding he said is the vertex use of the mind is to block out negative thoughts. So like the highest and best use of the mind is to block negative thoughts. So when you start going down this train of like you have these negative thoughts or whatever, how have you found to get yourself into a positive state or to whether it's block them out or like repattern them and move them aside and then think about something else?
I have to change my environment first. So it's hard to change a thought if you don't get up and get moving. So if I'm laying in bed and I'm having those anxious thoughts, I need to get up right away and task myself with something, make coffee, make some breakfast, water the plants, do something. So just change my environment and get moving. And then for me, it's pretty simple. Just address, okay, I'm thinking this thing, assess whether or not it's beneficial or negative. If it's negative, say, no, I don't want to think about that.
Hmm.
Get out of here. That's what I do. I'm just like, be gone.
You just say be gone, and then what do you do after you say be gone? Like, do you
I don't
not
actually say be gone, but
right?
um, once I decide I don't want to think about anything anymore, I just redirect my focus to something positive.
Okay.
One thing that's been really beneficial to me, I'm a huge beach enthusiast. I go to as many of them as often as I can. I'll just take a moment to sit and reflect on a moment that I was really happy. So I'll just sit down, close my eyes, and think about, strolling down the beach in Punta Cana or Isla Mujeres or wherever it is. Just remember a time where I was really grounded and really happy, and that typically helps.
Incredible. Yeah, I'm a big believer that we create our own reality. That this podcast is actually called The Reality Creators. So I'm a big believer that we create our reality with our thoughts, words, and actions, and then also that we create our own meaning. And
Mhm.
I'll give you an example. I when I was in Colombia like 3 years ago, I was starting to really wonder like is being the like I never liked the label digital nomad, but that's essentially what I was, like staying in Airbnbs, traveling to cool places, all that. And I like prayed to God to ask for like give me a sign, like am I on the right path? Is what I'm doing here like what I should be doing? And the next day, my backpack got stolen with my passport. And so that was not the sign that I was for. But one of my mentors had taught me, like, whenever something like quote unquote bad happens, the best question you can ask yourself is, how is this good for me? And
Mhm.
so I started continuously asking, how is this good for me? How is this good for me? Well, what ended up happening was this girl that I had gone on a couple dates with, I ended up staying in this town because I was trying to get my passport, get a new passport from the embassy and like dealing with all that. And ended up spending a bunch more time with her. And now she's my wife and we have a kid on the way.
Nice.
So it's like everything, like one of the beliefs that I have that's so empowering is like everything works out for me perfectly. And like even if it seems like it's bad, I can just give it a new meaning or I can search for a how is this good for me and then come up
Mhm.
with why it actually is good, which has been
Yeah,
incredible.
I love that.
Yeah. Have you done any like breath work or breathing exercises?
Yes, with through the VA, through my therapy there, we've done some breath work and stuff. Probably, nothing too advanced or complicated, but it always helps, especially when I get in one of those heightened states where, my heart rate goes up and my body gets hot. It just helps, settle things down a little bit.
Yeah, it helps you like it helps me recenter, connect back with my body and get out of my mind. So that's
Mhm.
for me a lot of time, and I think everybody is mind's constantly running. And in meditation, the monks call it the monkey mind or whatever, where it's
Mhm.
just like constantly you got this going on, and then it just helps me like now I have something to focus on. So I just
Yeah, for sure.
am there, and yeah, incredible. You talked to Harjot the other day, and for a long, long time, it sounds like.
Yeah, yeah. He was a regular attendee of my coaching calls, and then when someone's incredibly interested in improving themselves or their sales skill set or what have you, I recognize that. So I set aside time for certain people, and Harjod was one of them because he was so motivated and interested in like making it work. And when I put that up after we talked, I kind of came away from that conversation feeling a bit more coached than maybe I was expecting. I came there to coach him on getting better, his strategy and his skills, and just his whole operative stance on this high ticket thing. And I ended up walking away feeling like he coached me a little bit. Amazing guy.
Yeah, he's incredible. He's
Mhm.
he and I are doing well. I've made the container for it. He's leading it, but we have a weekly meditation on Wednesdays. That's just,
Mhm.
I now have some recordings from it, and like this morning I did the morning breath work and meditation there, and I just like body tingling, like don't need coffee, like full of energy after doing that. And I've been practicing with him for probably like 3 months now, and
Mhm.
man, my life has significantly improved.
That's
So
amazing. Yeah, I'm in the Telegram channel for that. I see the messages pop up. I either was being lazy or busy, so I haven't had the chance to get to one yet, but I told Harjo I'd check it out.
awesome. Yeah, it's funny. It was in Alex Hormozy's $100 million offers book. He talks about how hard of a sell meditation is, of like, you know, to the effort and time that you put in versus popping a pill or having a beer or smoking some weed or whatever the case is. It's like the meditation feels like work when you're getting into it, and it's hard to initially
Huh.
see the benefits. For me, when I first started, it was like my mind would just all negative stuff. So I'm like sitting with myself and it's just like I'm just getting pissed off and I'm like, how could this be helpful? But
Yeah.
as I've stuck with it, it's been incredible. And now I've been able to notice certain things about both myself and how I've reacted. I'm like, oh, the reason I do this is probably because that's how I saw my dad deal with this problem. And so, I learned that from him, and maybe that's me blaming somebody else and outside of myself, but I'm like, I realize the reason why I am the way I am in certain things. And then I've also been able to realize like the most incredible one was there's this girl when I was in Sedona, um, going to like a float tank thing. Her voice was like she talked like a mouse. It was really, really quiet. And then
Hmm.
I realized that was probably because in her childhood, her parents like screamed at her or yelled at her for making too much noise or being loud, or she had some kind of an event
Sure.
where it was like, I shouldn't talk loud. And that then transitioned and created her that personality trait. And I could be
Hmm.
completely wrong, but I feel fairly confident that that's at least on the right train of thought.
For sure. Okay,
So,
so how long are you in Colombia for?
until my wife gets her visa.
Okay.
So,
Great.
yeah, I'm the plan right now is in the end of May or probably early June, we're going to move to Austin, Texas.
Beautiful.
The other second choice is Sedona, Arizona, but I think
Hmm.
it's too much of like a touristy town and too small. Like there's not community. Whereas every time I've been to Austin, it's been just like the people there are so nice. I just like run into like I set the intention that I went to this gym that had like a sauna and cold plunge, and I set the intention I'm gonna find a real estate agent here who's gonna help me find a house. And then in the cold plunge, I'm sitting with a guy who helps people rent houses.
Perfect.
So I'm like, everything is just like the magic just continues to unfold, and it feels like where did you grow up?
Indiana.
Indiana. So it feels like, did you have like in high school, like everybody wanted to move out to California or Colorado?
No.
No. Okay. So I grew up in Minnesota, and that was like everybody was like, we're gonna move out to California, like that's the place. And with tech and Silicon Valley and things like that, it feels like Austin is that place where like everybody who is on my vibe or interested in the things that I am is moving there or already is there.
Right. I would agree.
So what kind of experiences have you had? Or have you had any crazy or interesting synchronicities in Austin?
No, I've only been the one time in the fall last year when we had the cereal sales meetup. Um, I thought the city was beautiful. I didn't have any negative experiences with the locals there or anybody that I met. Yeah, no crazy experiences. Pretty standard stuff, I would say.
Okay.
I could see the appeal while I was there, though.
Yeah, it'll be at least 3 times, if not 4 times as expensive as my lifestyle here. But that's just you know, the benefit of earning dollars and living by the Colombian peso is massive, but it's totally worth it, I think. So we'll see. We'll go there, and I mean, my wife hasn't even been to the States yet, so we'll see if that's the place. But I was living in Salt Lake City in Utah for like 10 years, and
Mhm.
it's just more and more and more been clear to me that that's not the place for me.
Yeah.
Like I loved it. I'm huge into like outdoors, rock climbing, snowboarding, stuff like that. And that's the perfect place to have a combination of a city and that. But it just doesn't feel right. And it's so crowded now. And I don't know about you. It sounds like based on with you where you're living right now and not even be able to see a house, it sounds like you value a lot being alone with yourself and the solitude.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
I like to choose when to insert myself into chaos. I don't want to be surrounded by it all the time.
Nice. Yeah. Okay. Well, does anything come up? Is there anything that you want to ask me or anything anywhere you want to direct the conversation to?
Not particularly. I came into this open-minded, just, going to get to know you. We've had some conversations via direct messages for a while. We know a lot of the same people. I just thought it'd be nice to, get to know you a bit, have a conversation. So, um, yeah.
Nice. I wanted to ask you a couple more things. So one is after being in active combat, after seeing the things that you've seen, what is your opinion overall on like war and the US's involvement in wars?
That's a very complicated question to answer. I'll answer it for myself, and I speak on behalf of nobody else. I'm very proud of the things that I accomplished while I was there, even though I didn't completely understand at the time why I was there. Um, in these kinds of situations, especially when you're a very young adult, it's hard to conceptualize and understand what the actual purpose is. And a lot of times nobody ever really knows. But what I do know is that I had people that I loved and cared about on either side of me at all times. And there was a task and a mission and a purpose. And I know that we had a lot of those and that we did well in most of them. And for that, I'm really proud. War in and of itself, I think, is an inevitable. I'm not a huge fan of, um, no, I don't want to say that,
That's fine.
but I think it's inevitable as much as I would love to say or think or live in a world where we don't have to worry about conflict. I just think that it's always going to be, it's an omnipresent thing in the world, and sometimes it's absolutely necessary. And yeah.
Yeah. I I I don't have the experiences that you have had. So I can totally understand and yeah, appreciate that perspective there. What do you so have you ever heard of the map of consciousness? It's this thing that's behind me here.
No,
I
but
want to
I'll
I
put it
want
on
to
my notes.
I want to show it to you because and I want to hear what your interpretation is of it. Because for me, this thing like I discovered this I think almost at least a year ago, if not 2 years ago. But it is just to me absolute truth. So it's like it's if you start with Nikola Tesla's like everything is an energy, frequency, or vibration, there's this
Mhm.
energetic log on a scale of 0 to 1,000, and then it puts a feeling or a an emotion beside it, and then um, to me, what it shows is like we all know love is the answer, and this is a way for our left brain to kind of be able to understand this on a like a numerical scale. But I'm curious as you look at it and you see, some of these what are called like the lower level emotions versus some of the higher ones. I'm curious like what stands out to you or what comes up for you.
You might have to clip this part and shorten it. Man, it's hard to articulate how I'm interpreting this. What I'm seeing is surface level reactions or emotions, and then like the subsequent way that that makes you feel, the way you view the world, the way God views you, or your relationship with Him, and the process. Can you explain in more detail what the process portion of this is trying to tell me? Is
Yeah.
it like your reactionary behavior to these feelings or emotions?
So I'll give you my interpretation. This is just how I view it and how I understand it is that these like the predominant emotional state is what you're feeling. The view of life is how you view life, and the God view is not how God views you, but how you view God. And then the process is if I want to move, say, from courage to neutrality, if I want to move up the scale, if I decide that I want to move more and more towards love and away from fear,
Mhm.
then the process is like if I'm in courage, I will look at what is the next step of release. And so it's like, okay, well, maybe I have things in the past that I'm feeling very tense about or angry about, and maybe I just need to release those resentments and those things like that. And that will then allow me to move into the state and the emotion of neutrality.
Okay, so identify the level, what the emotional state is, how you're viewing life or whatever the situation is, how you're viewing God, and then the process is saying, okay, so I'm feeling courageous. Um, my emotional state is I feel really affirmed right now. Like I can do this. I'm in this. I can do it. Everything is good. My view of life is I can totally make this happen. It's feasible. And God is permitting me to make a change, to take an action on something. And then the process is feeling empowered to actually do it and move up to the next level of neutrality, trust, satisfactory, enabling, and then just releasing things. And then kind of, is that it? Just kind of working your way up through these through a process?
According to my understanding, yes. And so
Okay. That's how I'm
if
seeing it as well.
my personal experience was so you can do there's something called muscle testing, and it's based off of the body doesn't lie or the body knows the truth. It's definitely not proven science, but
Mhm.
you can measure like you can measure a person's vibration, you can measure yourself's vibration, you can measure like say the food you're about to eat or like a place or anything like that. You can kind of calibrate it to figure out where it's at.
Hmm.
When I first discovered this, I was calibrated like I thought I was going to be up in reason, but I was calibrated at like 230 or something like that. And initially I was like disappointed because my ego was like, oh, I want to be at a higher level of this thing. And then what I realized is there was so many things that I needed to release, and a lot of it was just past experiences, people I hadn't forgiven, and things like that. And so as I
Yeah.
learned that, then I started ascending, and now I'm in mainly acceptance. Sometimes, especially after a really powerful like meditation with Harjode, I'll be up
Yeah.
in, which is really interesting. I'll calibrate myself, and I'll notice after doing the meditation with Harjode, I am at a higher energy level, which is just incredible. This is the book is called Map of Consciousness Explained by David R. Hawkins. Incredible book. There's another one by Frederick Dodson called Levels of Energy. It's the same scale, but it's done by a different author. So it's really interesting to see like two different people came to the same conclusion. To me, this is like universal truth, or it's at least a map that points into or allows me to understand more like why
Yeah.
do you get a bad vibe from a person or a place or a situation, or like when your gut tells you, and I'm sure you've learned over time, I definitely have that like trusting that feeling is so important. Anytime that I have not
Mhm.
trusted the bad vibe, I've gotten burned. And
Yeah.
so awesome.
And thankfully, you and I are in a place where we have the luxury of being able to avoid those things without fear of, something catastrophic happening. It's it's such a luxury to know that when I wake up in the morning, I could do absolutely nothing all day or all week or all month, and all of my bills and obligations are paid. So it gives me, and what it sounds like you, the ability to actually focus in on these things and tune and tweak and adjust them and understand them more than somebody who's got to be in the trenches.
Absolutely. And that's the thing that like I was saying before about people just trying to solve the money problem their whole life. It feels like you don't get a chance or like they don't get a chance to pursue higher meaning, spirituality, the meaning
Mhm.
of life, or whatever you want to call it, because they're in this survival paradigm of
Yeah,
like, how do I pay rent? How do I do this
right.
type of thing?
That's
So
why I stepped away from sales for a while. Um, it wasn't serving me in a positive way. It was putting me back in this scarcity mindset where it's like, oh no, my commissions are really low, or I haven't made a sale this week, and I was tying myself and my purpose and my worth to my performance. When in reality, I don't need to perform at anything anymore to live a comfortable and sustainable life. So as when I made that post and I've changed my bios and things, like I'm really focusing on myself internally and externally right now, wanting to be focus more on my physical and mental health than my financial health, because that's just not something I have to worry about. Now, if I wanted to go buy a Mercedes or, a beach house or whatever, I got to go back to work. I'm not going to be able to afford things like that on my pension and VA compensation. But I also don't really yearn for those things. I have very few financial vices. I like watches. I always have. I used to run a business buying and selling and trading luxury ones. So that's really the only expensive thing other than travel that I spend money on. But I don't consider traveling a an expense. It's more of an experience. But yeah, I love that you brought up this chart, this map. I'm gonna look into it because it's just another thing that it's a tedious task in a positive way, something that I can dive into, learn more about, and just learn more about myself. Because that's really what this season of my life is all about, is taking care of me, making sure the people around me are okay. But I just want to become a higher level person, just out of love for myself. Like I deserve it. I should be more joyful. I should be more happy. I should be more grounded and secure and positive. Like, because I've earned it. I've already been to hell and back a couple of times. I don't need to purposefully put myself there ever again.
Yeah. It's so liberating. I'm not like I've always been very money motivated. And I don't know if that's because my parents kind of like taught me that money was scarce and you had to work for it, like you had to work hard for it and you had an hourly rate and things like that. But it's it's so freeing to like for me, not interested in a nice car. Like I'll probably buy a Tesla or at least like when I drive cars in the States, I rent Teslas. Um,
Mhm.
but they're not even, I mean, anymore. They're very affordable. So it's like I'm not
Exactly.
interested in any of the, you see the like Miami-based marketing guys, right? So those guys, in my opinion, are in pride. So it's all about their
Mhm.
ego. Miami as a city, according to my friend Danny Miranda, who's really good at muscle testing and things like that, measures at like 190 or 175. So below
Right.
average. Austin
It's
measures
a,
500.
yeah. Well, I feel like, and this is I have nothing to back this. I've never even been to Miami, but from what I've seen and what's been displayed, it seems like a peacocking place where the luxuries come before the success, because faking having or having earned those kinds of things will get you credibility in certain circles or with certain people or with strangers that you want to take from a complete stranger to a prospect to an appointment to a client. Like it's going to be a lot easier for someone who is much more status and possession driven to want to buy a coaching program or a mentorship or anything from a guy that's probably sharing a rented Lamborghini Urus with like six other self-help gurus in Miami. Whereas the vibes in Austin were so different to me. It was more experiential. Like, let's go to Barton Springs. Let's go share a meal together. Let's go work out together. I found that to be a way cooler place than what I assume Miami is.
Yeah. I've only been there once. And I mean, I've been to the airport several times, but I've only been there once. It was for a friend's bachelor party. And yeah, not the place, not the place for me, for sure.
It just, and being 35, like I am, I'm sure have already gotten to a place in life where it's like, it's none of my business what somebody else thinks about me anymore. Like, if you don't like me, that's okay. I don't have to think about it or acknowledge it. And the truth of the matter is my life doesn't change at all if someone has negative opinions of me. Even if they tell them to me or someone else and it gets back to me, my lights are still on and my fridge is still full of food and my car's still in the garage and my bank account is the same and my plan, nothing really changes. So it's something I tell a lot of the younger people that come into this. Be careful where you put your energy in terms of worrying about what people think. My watches I drive a new Honda. It's humble, but it never breaks and it's comfortable and efficient. My watches are worth more than my car. and I have no interest in the watches are for me. They're not for you or anybody else. They're purely a source of joy for myself because I find them interesting. So that lifestyle of hustling and culture and stacks of money and I don't get it. I don't want to chase it. Um,
Yeah. I'm happy to be free from that, from the caring about what people think and trying to impress people with material possessions and things like that.
for sure.
I would love to hear just off the top of your head on this map of consciousness, what level that you feel that you're at, or what like resonates the most with you right now. There's no right or wrong answer, but it's just like we
Sure.
could probably make an educated guess on where you're at just based on like what if you think about what your predominant emotional state is and what your view of life is, you could probably make a pretty good guess.
I think that it'll be similar to where you were at. I would hope or would like to think that I'm up in that reasoning, understanding phase of consciousness, but I'd probably put myself at courage right now because this choice to go semi-retired is fairly recent. It's been in the last month or two where I said, I'm going to pump the brakes. I don't have to do this. I don't have to stress out about deadlines and KPIs and all of this stuff. I just don't have to. So I think I've had the courage to make that change. I've affirmed myself. I've recognized that it's feasible for me to live this way in perpetuity if I decide to. And that I'm permitted to do so. And I feel really empowered to just live my life however I choose to live it right now. And I'm looking forward to graduating to as I as I stay in this season of my life longer, growing into higher levels of, understanding myself, my situation, and how I feel. So I put myself right in that courage, maybe teetering on the neutrality, trusting that everything is okay. I put myself right around that 200, 250.
Nice. Yeah. I don't I don't know. I could try to muscle test you, but this is like a complete it's the not scientific at all.
Yeah.
So yeah. Well, that's super cool. Let me see if I had any other notes of things that I wanted to touch on. What would you say to your 19-year-old self who is like just about to enlist or just about to go into the army?
Oh, I wouldn't change what I did. What I would say to that person, stop being so frivolous. Because I grew up in a very downtrodden, unwealthy environment. So when I got my first $20,000 bonus, or I was getting my, tax-free overseas pay with hazard pay and jump pay and all of these combat associated pays, and I was making more money than I had ever even seen. And it wasn't even crazy. I was making like 60 or 70K a year when I first started going over there. But I would spend it all on trucks and motorcycles and vacations, and I never kept any of it for 5 to 8 years of the first half of my service. I blew every dime I made because my housing was covered, my food was covered, my medical, everything was just all I had to do was exist and be physically fit and mean. So I would tell that person to be much more frugal and smart. Learn about money so that you don't have to worry about money later. As I could be hundreds of thousands of dollars ahead of where I'm at right now, should if I would have taken from 19 to 25, 26, 27, if I would have put that money to work, it'd be doing great things for me right now, but I didn't. I was living back then a lifestyle where I thought impressing people with my toughness, my money, my truck with big tires and wheels on it, my motorcycles, that's where my value came from. And I would want the younger me to know that your value isn't tied to anything other than how you treat yourself, how you treat other people, and how you navigate the world. Um,
I love that.
but I'd still do the same job. I'd still go do the same things with the same people. I would never, I would never change that impact that I had.
Yeah. That resonates a lot with me because sometimes I am like I have a little bit of jealousy for the young guys who are like in their 20s who are in the sales space. They didn't go to college and get a career and they're like they've already figured out like how to be persuasive, how to make money on the internet and that like the education was probably there, but I certainly wasn't looking for it. Like when I was a 20-year-old, all I cared about was drinking, snowboarding, rock climbing, like partying, smoking weed, like all those things. And it's just,
Yep.
yeah, those are, but I wouldn't trade it. I've had so many like traveling, I've had so many incredible experiences. Rock climbing, I've climbed like some of the biggest mountains, like the biggest ones in the States, basically, and even some in Patagonia that are super incredible. So it's like that that part of me is still actually like a month ago, I was in the US and I went rock climbing again, and it was so much fun. But now it's
Mhm.
not my identity. Like if anybody asks like, do you know Jeff from say 20 to 30? It was like the climber. That would have been their response of
Yeah.
how you know each other. So yeah, now I'm still forming my identity, I guess, but I'm way more interested in like studying the nature of reality and just like
Yeah.
learning, leveling myself up and just enjoying being, which has been complicated.
Yeah. The transition from your identity coming from the mouths and words and thoughts of other people to your identity coming from within yourself. Like I want to, I want to state what my identity is. I want to know myself better and confirm that. And then other people can see it through the way that I live, versus being defined by somebody else. Like, oh, Vance is the soldier guy that, is always overseas and does jiu-jitsu and rides motorcycles and has a big truck. Like, oh, the guy with the big white truck. Like, I'm not the guy with the big white truck. I'm a guy, you know, I'm a, I'm an entity. I'm a person, not things or situations. And it's an interesting transition in life when you go from, at least for me, thinking one way to thinking another way. I don't need external validation from anybody anymore to feel good about myself or what I'm doing or the choices I'm making.
100%. What did you learn about yourself in jujitsu?
That I'm not as tough as I thought I was.
That
I'm a
is
lot tougher. I'm a lot tougher with a gun than without. Um, I've learned that I'm not. I've been doing it for about 12 years, but I don't do it actively much anymore. But definitely not as bendy as I should be. Um, so I need to stretch more. But the humbling aspect of doing jujitsu is really well humbling. Um, so it's taught me to be more aware of myself and my abilities, but also much more respectful of other people because there's some real string beans that can be absolute murderers. Just because I'm 6'1", 230, 240, it's like I'm not a small human. But there's a lot of small humans out there that could do me a great deal of harm. So instead of navigating the world as a tough guy with my chest out, my chin up, like I'm not at war anymore. I don't have to peacock like that or portray the tough guy. I'll handle business if I have to handle business. But now I walk through the world because I don't know anything about anybody, you know? So be careful pushing and shoving and getting shouting matches or anything. So it's made me a more peaceful person out of fear that, I might run into the one. So let's just be nice to each other and avoid all that. We'll scrap in the gym.
I love that. I've noticed people who are trained in martial arts are so much more humble and
Mhm.
they don't have the need to fight because they know that like, yeah, if I need to, I can handle my own for the most part. Like if
Mhm.
I get in a street fight or whatever, or somebody tries to
Yeah.
jump me, like I've got tools. But
Yeah.
yeah, so that's so
I had
cool.
somebody send me a video the other day. It's funny you mentioned that. They sent a video of it was like a prank, I believe, where someone pretended like they were gonna mug somebody or something. I can't remember the specifics, but someone asked me like, "What would you do in that situation? Are you fighting or are you running away?" I'm like, "I'm running away." I don't know. Dude, they got a gun, they got a knife. Like, my pride isn't that big. Take my wallet, take my watch. I'm out of here, dude. Tim McGraw style. uh, yeah, there's no reason for any of that, and unless there's absolutely no other option, then I'd like to think the culmination of all of my training and experiences and efforts would, puts me in a pretty good spot to handle business, but I don't ever want to have to handle any business ever again. I don't
Yeah,
go hunting. I have my guns, but I rarely shoot them. I've shot enough for 10 lifetimes. So I just want to have a smile on my face, put smiles on other people's faces, and enjoy my space, the world, just get to know myself better.
incredible. Well, last question to wrap up here is what do you wish the world knew? Like what do you know and what have you learned through life that you wish like more people knew and embodied?
Learning to love yourself first through your faults, missteps, mistakes, learning to forgive and love yourself for being imperfect before you try to go and be loved by other people. And this would be for romantic relationships specifically in this case. I think a lot of people go through a bunch of undue trials, tribulations, and heartaches because they rush into situations where they just don't want to be lonely, but they're not ready to receive or to give love because they don't know how to do it for themselves first. Maybe it's not tied specifically to romantic relationships, but if you want to build lasting and meaningful relationships, I think you need to know and understand yourself first. You need to be able to love yourself, forgive yourself, accept yourself first before you can start projecting that out onto other people. It's like you mentioned earlier, letting go of things in the past. One of my favorite analogies is you can't steal second base if you still got one foot on first. So step off, man. Let it go. It happened. You can't change it. Somebody hit my car the other day. I just paid it off last month. And before the snowstorm, somebody hit my car in the parking lot. And my first reaction when I saw it was, this sucks. Like, this is crazy. People suck. Everything sucks. This is BS. Now I got to pay a deductible and get a rental car and whatever. It doesn't matter. It literally just doesn't matter. So don't sweat the small stuff. Get to know yourself. Um, and be the best version of yourself for yourself, and then be that for other people. That's something I would have told my younger self as well too.
Love that. Love that so much. Thank you for sharing.
You're welcome.